Grandmaster Flash is here. What a treat. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good.
What, when you get on stage now and you're about to drop the very first song of the night, what does it feel like? And how different is it from how it's felt over the years? How has that evolved?
It hasn't evolved. It's the same thing. It's just a different time frame. I think probably for the first couple of minutes, because of my knowledge of music and the various types of music that I play in the set, it's important for me to try to set the mood as soon as I can. So in some countries, I might drop a pop song, I might drop a rock song, or jazz, or blues, or funk, or disco, or R&B, or alternative, or Caribbean song. It just really depends. But I'm kind of trying to set the hip-hop mood from a DJ's perspective.
How do you know which genre to drop first? Are you looking in the crowd first? Are you watching people line up? How do you feel it?
That's God right there. That's the only way I can say it.
Just coming to you?
It just comes to me. It just comes to me what should be first. You know, sometimes during the day, you know, I'm thinking about certain songs, and I kind of line them up, and I'll say no, and I'll line them up, and I'll say no, and I'll say, and I just kind of just set it up in my mind. Then I set it up in a laptop, and then I take it apart, and then I just read the crowd eventually. That's what it comes down to, reading the crowd. I try to put together a set, like I'll put together a compilation of songs in a file, but I'll never follow it. I just never follow it.
Has God ever led you astray on that first song?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And then what do?
I figure it out quickly. And it's been, you know, we're all born with gifts. I think, you know, all of us are born with gifts, and some of us find our gifts when we're very young. Some of us follow it, you know, find it middle-aged, and some of us find it in our later mature years. I found my gift like very young, and being able to figure out, looking at a number of people in a room, I've learned how to figure it out. It's not absolute, but I found a way to figure that out.
Do you think that you know, Grandmaster Flash, understand a beat better than most people? Because in the beginning for you, you actually had a grease pencil on vinyl. When I started in radio, I used to edit by using a grease pencil. You'd make this. So I'd actually understand what a groove would be because I had to physically touch it. Mm-hmm. And from what I read about you, you used to have to, like you would just draw around a radius or circumference, and you would actually understand where the beat started, where it ended, because you touched it.
Sure.
Does that give you a different appreciation of what it should sound like?
I think it gives me, it's a gift and a curse, because I can't listen to music the way most people listen to music. And I say this, like most people listen to music when it's tied up, and I say this, I can only say this in a fictitious way, is when it's tied up in a bow and it's done and it rocks and it feels good. Me, if it pleases people, I'm trying to figure out why. Is it the kick drum? Is it the melody? Is it what the vocalist is saying? Is it the mix on it? I'm already tearing the song apart. So I can't listen to a song totally done, tied up in a bow. I just haven't done that in decades.
That's got it. It's an interesting headspace. Does a record ever come on in 5 seconds and you're like, oh, I'm just listening to this song? Is there one that you can just lose yourself in and not think about that?
Probably Bach, Stravinsky, Tchaikovsky.
So it's all the classical composers of the day.
Yeah, because you don't know where it's going. It just goes. You know, it's like Stravinsky, I really enjoy him because it feels happy, and then all of a sudden he'll change the chord structure, and now it's to scare the crap out of you. And then it comes back, you know, like Rites of Spring is probably one of I think that's one of his genius compositions. And then I'm into like horns and strings. I like orchestras like the Nelson Riddle Orchestra, like Frank Sinatra's type stuff.
Did your dad have that stuff? Because I read that it was his record collection.
Yeah. So I like, you know, Stan Kent and, you know, Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. Like, you know, these are the kind of things that I grew up with. You know, my mom's, you know, was Lena Horne. You know, and then my four bigger sisters were Tito Puente and the Motown sound, you know, the disco sound and the funk sound. So I was, being one of the youngest ones in the family, I was pretty blessed to hear all these things at one time. I just was going around the house just tearing shit up, you know, unscrewing the back, trying to figure out how it works. But other than that, I was pretty blessed.
But it's interesting because, you know, for a lot of guys who feel that way now about music, there are clear paths cut for them. So if someone likes music and wants to, or figures out that they can be good at it, there's a genre for them to be in. For you and those early guys, there was no genre for you to be in. So when did it occur to you that you guys were building something?
I think I didn't realize I was building something. I just got angry with the status quo. I was very unhappy with the way DJs were playing. I was very unhappy with the pop chart and the rock chart and the jazz chart and the blues and the R. That there just totally didn't make sense to me. I think for me, the string that brings it all together is a great beat, you know, and it could be a group from Canada, it could be a group from California, it could be a group from Australia, it could be a group from Japan, you know, and a hot track is just a hot track, you know, and that could be in the realm of pop, rock, jazz, blues, funk, R&B, disco, alternative Caribbean, you know, dubstep, you know, drum and bass. I mean, it could come from anywhere. So I don't pay attention to charts. I don't care about them.
So, but you knew enough back then that you weren't happy with them, but still the idea that I'm going to do something else. So was it Theodore? No, it was Herc and who had cut, and Theodore had scratched it, but he had seen you. But how did you figure out that, or did you even figure out that you guys were going to do something down?
Herc wasn't cutting, I was cutting.
You were cutting.
It's what people do today is my science. Herc was playing great music. Theodore was my first student. So
Mean Gene, right? Was it the brother, his brother?
Yeah, Mean Gene, yeah. So, you know, when I say I was angry with the way DJs was playing, it's because most DJs would handle a record like it was a child, you know, pretty much, you know, would handle it on the edges, and they would have this velvet brush, and they would put it in the jacket very neatly. And for me, I always wondered why they did that. And then when I started listening to music, and I discovered that to every great music, there's a great part. And the great parts were where the drummers had a solo, but they were like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And that fueled the frustration in me, for me to come up with a complete formula with math and science, which is what I did. And not realizing that this is the way that people play today.
Were you good at math and science in school?
Yeah, I was pretty much a nerd. Yeah, dated very late. Kind of stayed to myself. Me and I had a best friend by the name of Easy Mike, you know. But other than that, my best friend was my miniature Doberman Pinscher, Caesar. You know, grew up in a group home. You know, so when I was old enough to leave the system, you know, was kind of to myself. And then listening to DJs, listening to music, I was very unhappy with the way it sounded to me. It bugged me.
Did you feel alone when you were a kid and just coming out?
No, I didn't feel alone because I was always, I think when I finally realized that I had to do something with this music, either I was in an abandoned lot where cars were just left and I was unscrewing the speakers out of the rear, or I was opening the backs of stuff from junkyards and figuring this and trying to figure this and trying to figure that out, you know. And then later on, you know, it all came to me, you know, who was Nikola Tesla and who was George Westinghouse, and ohm. What is his law? What is a resistor? What is a capacitor? What is a transformer? What is AC versus DC?
How many DJs do you think about it like you do?
How many DJs do I think this way?
Because I've interviewed a lot of DJs in my life, and no one talks about that.
I don't think anybody approached it like that. I think for me, I had to learn about the equipment that I would need to perform this task. So opening the back of equipment, you know, if you would open the back and see the circuitry, there's these tubular things in there that have colors on them. There resist the color codes, you know, and then there's diodes, you know, and then I come from the era where the vacuum tube was really prevalent, you know, and the tubes like the 12AX7, what they mean, you know, and all these different things that make a circuit work.
Do you remember the first time you saw a Macintosh amp in those tubes? Do you remember the first time you saw that?
The first time I saw the Macintosh amp was when I got pretty close to Kool Herc set. It was quite amazing to see the big blue meters, you know, but by this time I had understood how it works. And of course the equipment I had was nowhere near that, but I had the electronic knowledge. So when I was finally able to look at how a turntable works, then I came up with different sciences and terms.
We're talking to Grandmaster Flash, who's here in the house as we're putting tonight's radio show together. Is it true that you used to take power from city street lights as well? Did you do that?
Yeah, because the way I see it is that once I came up with this formula on how to DJ, I had to start showing people. But the problem was, if I were to go into an area, like if there was a park in this area here, and the closest house was somebody's bedroom, it was 9 times out of 10 when I asked, can I put my extension cord in your house and play for 6 hours, it was like super hell no. So for me, I had to go to parks where the street lamps turn on at a certain time. So by this time I figured out that these particular street lamps that turn on at dusk, which is around 5, 6 o'clock, behind the timer there has to be voltage constantly going. So what I did was I got a pair of vice grips or a wrench, and I broke the cover, and I just kind of pulled the wires until I was able to see behind the timer. And then I got a voltmeter, and I just checked for AC to be running constant.
How'd you not get electrocuted?
I got electrocuted quite a few times in my lifetime trying to figure it out. But you know, with the test lamp, I was able to you know, like after the timer, I was like my voltmeter wouldn't register 110 volts. But then as I kept, you know, I put 1 point on ground, and then I was just checking for positives, and then I got behind the timer, then my meter went to 110 and it stayed, and I just kind of walked away for 20 minutes to make sure that it would stay at 110. Now I knew I was behind the timer. So what I did was I would cut the head off the extension cord, strip the wires, wrap them around the voltage behind the timer, put electrical tape, close the top up, run the cable into the park, and plug up.
Just it's incredible to think like what you had to go through just to play something that people had never heard before. It's just so much easier now. Now it's a laptop in a home, and people can take a laptop and a USB stick on the road and tour the world.
Yeah.
And will it have an impact on the music in that, like, look at all you guys who built this genre, and you specifically with Dex built this stuff that's had such a huge impact on mine and so many others' lives. It's because you had to fight for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That it was so powerful.
Yeah, we had to fight for it because I mean the big Godzilla was disco.
Yeah.
That was the huge, you know, the Tramps and Donna Summers and radio, and that was the big thing, and you had to, you know, be a certain way and dress a certain way with that thing there, and it was like, oh, we didn't want to do that, you know, so without really realizing it, like nobody came together and said, we're going to create this thing. It was just, I was in my room doing what I had to do, and Bam was what he had to do, and then Herc was doing what he had to do, and then somehow or another, the coming together of these different platforms and sciences, you know, it's just mine is the contribution of just how you play the music.
What's it like being doing shows with Africa Bambaataa?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the two of you together.
When I was asked to do this, I got to tell you, I am blessed to have been to almost every free country in this world more than 20 times in my lifetime. And getting into the countries pretty easily. When it comes to this place here, I have sat as long as 2 or 3 hours.
With customs?
With customs, because they're trying to find something wrong with me, and I'm like, okay, you know, so when I was asked, like I rarely come here for one show.
Your passport doesn't say Grandmaster Flash. It
No,
says
so
Joseph Sadler.
So I rarely come to Canada for one date. I say, if I'm going to do Canada, let me just get the headache, get the custom, and let's just do 5 or 6 shows. Other than that, don't call me for one. But then they said, Bam is going to be on the bill. And me and Bam haven't done this in forever. Probably in the parks is the last time we played in the same location. And to play with Bam to play with me, this is, I don't know. This is, I can't even describe it. It's special. It's very special.
It's going to be special for us to be a part of it. Grandmaster Flash is here. Obviously, because it's a relatively young genre, one of the youngest, save for the explosion of what dance music turned into over the years.
Sure.
But the evolution of this genre is incredible. That, I mean, in positives and negatives, I mean, it's the biggest stuff in the world is hip hop now in our lifetime. Like in your lifetime.
Yes.
It's gone from stealing power to this, borrowing power.
Yeah.
To this.
Yes.
Are you happy with what it's turned into?
I'm quite blessed. I'm quite special, you know, and there's so many subgenres, and it's so many ways, you know, so many things you can pick on. Okay, I like this type of hip hop. I like this type of hip hop. And for me, I think what saddens me is there aren't enough DJs that play this lost art style that I play, which is more like the ingredients of what hip hop's pillars are. There, like in a 2-hour set, you may find some DJs that play the same type of songs for 2 hours. I like to play little bits of different genres in a 2-hour set.
Isn't a DJ supposed to be a selector? That's a big part of the job, is to know which tracks to select.
Yeah, I guess, and they do select, I'm sure, but if they're playing R&B, they're playing R&B for 2 hours. Me, I'm going pop, rock, jazz, blues, funk, R&B, disco, R&B, alternative, some string shit, and then I'm coming back, and I'm just, you know, and I'm playing something from 2014, and I'm going back to 1965. I'm kind of moving it around.